for our follow-up on the Ultimate Street Fighter shootout. We already did 2 rounds, one on the track, one on the street. KTM and the BMW S1000R, they came up the top. They were the cream of that crop, but we couldn't get the Tuono in time. So now we got to see which one is the creamiest of the crop. So to find out which one stands at the top, we first brought them to Auto Club Speedway, where all 3 of these bikes were topping 160 miles an hour. So anybody who thinks you need a full-on super sport leader bike to go fast, you're wrong, because these things are outrageously fast and a lot of fun too. So now, after we thrashed them at the track day, got them back on the street, already done lots of miles on both of these bikes on the side, and we've already had miles on the Tuono, but we haven't put them side by side, and so this is going to be an important day to figure out which is the ultimate Street Fighter. Tom, what do you think so far? How's it looking?
As far as the track thing that we did the other day, it was, for myself, a fraction between these 2 bikes. You know, I really like the Aprilia. Like I was saying the other day, it's the bike that made me hate that track the least. And also, being at that track, though, sheds light on the differences, because previously we were at Chuckwalla Raceway, and the KTM shone very well there. You know, it was a very comparable machine against, especially the BMW that day. What we found at Fontana is that with, you know, much more, you know, hard braking areas and not quite just swooping turns like at Chuckwalla, that was chicanes. Right. That was much more of a handful, and it actually fell to 3rd myself among these 3. The KTM still did very well, but you know, its shortcomings become a little bit more highlighted because of the bike's size. It's a little bit longer travel suspension, things of that, compared to these more track-worthy competitors here.
Yeah, it was amazing the difference from Chuckwalla to Auto Club Speedway and the experience on the track. Troy, you missed out Chuckwalla. What'd you figure from Auto Club?
And you guys were gushing about this KTM, especially at Chuckwalla. I can see why that track is really tight and twisty and benefits a bike like the KTM that has lots of torque and doesn't need to be shifted a whole lot. Auto Club Speedway, for those purists out there, is probably the polar opposite of Chuckwalla. You can use 6th gear and really wring out the engines of all of these bikes. And the KTM has lots of torque, but that's a horsepower track. And for me, these other 2, the BMW and the Aprilia, really stood out in that regard. And the KTM, personally, was a 3rd place at the racetrack. Now, that's by the smallest of margins.
I think it should be noted as well that these 2 bikes are the only 2 bikes here with the quick shifter. And especially at Fontana, where there's a lot more shifting involved, we did like these 2 more, and that was a significant factor.
And to me, the thing that really stands out the shootout is that they're all different, right? Inline 4 1000cc, V4 1000cc, and a V-twin 1300cc. And yet the bikes are all so close. Usually at this point in the game, even though they're so different, the performance capabilities are all pretty much equal. And so we're going to be having to split some hairs on this one.
It would be helpful with clip-on and full fairing at 160 miles an hour. So that's a hard wind blast. And the other thing that I found, you know, reaching that type of speed, these 2 bikes, while they would acquire low 160s at the end of that straight, you know, it took kind of a good drive off that last corner to get there. The KTM, you know, the good drive was the default setting on that motorcycle.
300 extra cc's, right?
Yeah,
there's a benefit there.
The torque, you know, I mean, it's just that creates your, you know, default good drive. Amazing, amazing engine. I
rode the Tuono to the track day, and I rode the BMW home, and I think at the end of a long track day, I would have been a lot less happy on a full super sport clip-on type bikes. And these, you can ride at home from the track day and then go sport touring on the weekend. They're just awesome performance bikes for the street.
Damn, when you're on a tight road like this 1000cc sport bike almost feels like a 650. It's so easy to crank into a corner, so willing to change direction. Track day at Auto Club Speedway. All 3 of these bikes were topping 160 miles an hour on the front straight. So there's no real need to complain about the amount of power in any of these bikes. They're phenomenal.
God, how I love this motorcycle. This motorcycle just has me begging to come back for more. The power delivery, the torque especially, is so damn addicting. But the big thing is that is just so amazing about the KTM is it's so comfortable. You know, it's got more of an adventure rider seating position. So, you know, you're sitting a little bit more just kind of straight up and down, but it's got tons of leg room. Oh. Being 5'11", 185, man, I can just sit on this bike and ride all freaking day.
What a really cool engine sound that is. It's hard to fault this thing. It's a lot of fun. Having a blast just squirting through these corners, getting on the power, listening to that V4 engine roar. It's really, really cool. The sound though, sounds were enough to win these shootout tests, then the Aprilia takes the cake. Yeah, I'm trying to find other things to complain about with this 2.0. And I'm coming up empty because it's a really good bike. Then again, the other bikes here are good too, so I'm having a hard time with this one. That's the honest truth. Care about the looks once I get on that throttle and hear that engine roar! Woo-hoo! It sounds so cool, I couldn't care less about the looks.
Oh man, Ultimate Street Fighter Shootout? This ain't easy. These bikes are all different, and yet they're all so close in performance. Troy, you weren't around for the first time. What's your thoughts?
I'm still undecided. We spent all day riding, and each time I hop off one, I'm like, oh, that's my favorite. And I go on the next one, oh, that's my favorite. And the third one, that's my favorite. So, I don't know.
And the crazy thing is, Tom and I have had way more time on these bikes than you.
Yeah.
And I think we're similarly conflicted.
Similarly, but I think I've been able in my mind to deduce down to the fact that if I had to go spend the money, and a lot of this is subjective, in my mind, I can justify going down and spending $17,000 on the KTM. Why? Because it's the best all-around bike. It's the most comfortable for me to do on the street or on the track. It has the performance on the track that I would like to have. Kevin, I couldn't decide. I had the hardest time because this bike is less expensive, more stuff, but it's been sitting in my garage, and man, I want to go ride this bike when I have it in my possession.
Yeah, and another great thing about the KTM, there's a lot of tall people out there who say, oh, I wish I had a sport bike, but they don't fit me. I can't get on a sport bike, I'm hurting. Well, get a Super Duke R, because this thing fits big people, and it's got tons of performance. So if you're a tall person looking for a comfortable, relatively comfortable sport bike, this is the way to go. I like the BMW because it's got the shortest seat height, and short riders, that comes into play for them. And with the dynamic damping control, I love that feature on motorcycles, but I don't know if I can say that's a better overall bike than the KTM. The KTM costs more. I was saying earlier, the brakes, the M50 caliber Brembos on this KTM, they are super powerful and yet easy to modulate. The BMW is a little grabby. The Aprilia takes quite a squeeze to get braking power, even though there's plenty there once you do squeeze it.
You could possibly disagree with me, but again, it's that V4, the sound, the feel, the power delivery, the mass centralization that makes it a very, nimble motorcycle, like its RSP, I love that one, but just a smidge less than I love the KTM.
We've criticized inline fours as being too generic sounding these days. But personally, I freaking love the sound of an inline four screaming its lungs off at whatever. I mean, I love that sound at the racetrack in 6th gear pinned. I mean, it sounded really sweet, and I like that. I do like the sound of the Aprilia too. It just echoes off the mountain air in a way that these two don't. I love that sound.
I think this bike is the best bike, especially for taller riders. But the Aprilia, if I had to park one of them in my garage, that thing pushes my buttons like these other ones don't. That V4 is delicious. I get excited just hearing it. It's maybe not quite as refined as these two bikes now. It's been around for a few years. But it is a special machine, and it pushes the buttons, and it's the cheapest bike in this test, which that's got to count for something.
Well, the seat on that thing sure did push my uncomfortable button.
Well, it's better, a lot better than the old one, but it's the tallest seat height of the bunch. I think it's even taller than the KTM for short legs, so buyer beware.
I'll tell you what though, if I had to pick just a street bike, if I never went to a racetrack ever, the KTM is my pick, hands down. Let's go home.
I struggle because there is more technology on this one, and I do like technology with the suspension and the cruise control. But the Aprilia outside the quick shifter is the only bike here where you can actually manipulate very easily with the 2 buttons, the traction control on the fly. Well, if you're on the track, you're like, it's a little too high, a little too low, beep, 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 boom, fantastic. So that's a technology that bike offers that, man, the other ones should have.
Right. The different electronic controls on the Aprilia can all be individually changed on their own, whereas the ride modes of the BMW and the KTM influence things like traction control and wheelie control. You can shut off wheelie control on the Aprilia, which I preferred. Could we say that these are some of the 3 best sporting street bikes that you ever ridden?
Yes. Absolutely. I would be happy if one were given to me for Christmas. I would be happy with any of them.
Put a bow on any one of these, and yeah, I'm a happy camper too.
Well, we should mention, we did point out in our last review that the KTM, the suspension up front, does have the little twisty knob, so you can reach down and easily just click, 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 do your compression and rebound. So that's a handy feature to have, even though it doesn't have the electronic suspension as the BMW does.
Yeah, I was just going to mention suspension. I remember at the track the other day, I did the first session on the Aprilia, and I'd come back and I'd have to, get the screwdrivers and my gloves and go in there and adjust things. I hop off the BMW and I'm like, hey, this thing needs to be firmed up a bit. Oh, it's suddenly firmer. And I go back out and I'm like, holy crap, this is exactly the changes I wanted to happen.
Yeah, and then the 4 ride modes influence the amount of damping it has. So there's more than just soft, normal, and hard. There's the different ride modes that influence it as well. Love dynamic damping on bikes. It's going to become even more popular as time goes on here. But sadly for the BMW, it's not measuring quite up to the KTM's all-around usefulness, huh?
Well, I think KTM is going to be one of our selections for Bike of the Year. Not necessarily a winner, but a selection.
Yeah, it's that good a bike. So we're going to get home, tally up the scorecards, see how it all sorts itself out, but really, we could be happy on any of these machines. The competition here is so close, they're all that good. If you're watching this on YouTube, you gotta go to motorcycle.com and read the whole story. If you're interested in bikes, why wouldn't you? And if you're watching motorcycle.com, thank you.
You gotta reach up for the sky. Don't know how you feel if you don't even try. I feel so low, baby. Come on, get me high. I'm facing quite a difficult road. I feel I'm carrying everyone's load. Another day comes to